Hello, everybody. Thank you for your patience. I always have to give myself a little bit of time when the stream starts to make sure I've not caused any technical gaffes. So, anybody that is listening, please let me know you can hear my voice and I can look in the chat. And thanks for joining us, everybody. And thank you for your patience. And can I say hello to the great Amanda James and my good friend, Mr. Shins Koala? Could you both say hello? Please.
Hello.
Hello, everybody. Andrew was just squishing me like a thumb on a blueberry.
I was merely asking my learned friend here if he would refrain from engaging in chewing-like activities during the duration of this stream. So
yeah,
that was all it was.
It's been a while, so you had to.
I'm pretty sure you did it on the last stream, actually, dude.
You had to give me a refresher course. So, okay.
Right. Okay. Right. Well, it's been a while since we've talked to Lorne, and it's bizarre because I kind of miss doing it. There's something very kind of addictive about doing these things. It's kind of healthy to, because I've been, as people know, I always question myself and think, well, what the fuck am I doing? But I kind of justify it for a number of reasons in my own head. And one of them is like I've been learning about communication, or should I say reading about it, and how important it is as us humans to actually convey ourselves in any kind of way. So that's how I'm justifying it. And also, when it comes to actually the subject matter, that's where I really struggle. It's bizarre. I still have to like explain it to people like, I'm doing YouTube tonight. Is it about that guy again? Yeah. Oh, are you still talking about him? Yeah. And then I'm thinking like, okay, I've been rumbled here. It's like people just wouldn't get it, would they? It's so fucking crazy. It's like that same guy. He's not really done that much, has he? Really?
No.
No,
yeah, I
but
get
there's
that too.
talk about already. I mean, this has been going on for years now.
Yeah, and I suppose there's still new content coming out, isn't there? Which is, I suppose, you know, the sort of the, what do you call it, like a rabbit hole is still being dug, as it were.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's a different sort. You know, now, you know, before he was talking to actual real women and sometimes men, but he thought they were women.
When was that?
Yeah, now he's talking to a keyboard. What a wonderful thing that would be.
But hasn't it been talking to a keyboard forever? I mean, going right back to Amanda James, that was a keyboard. Kayla was a keyboard. All the catfishes have been a keyboard.
There was a voice on the phone, an actual human voice. Even Kayla had a human voice. Amanda James had a human voice.
Right.
You know, all the other women did. This is a robot, a male robot voice.
And think about how cool it is for the catfish to not have to talk and just type whatever he wants to this guy and he reacts. You could just hand it off to somebody in your house. Hey, you want to talk to this guy? Yeah. What do you want to say? You know, you can just have a party. Probably what Sherry Twist did.
Yeah. The reason I kind of we had a bit of but Shin came up with the idea about it, and we won't go into it too much here because all I have to do is mention a topic, and Shin will just keep going because it's so kind of. Well, just me. I'm not trying to like insult you, dude, because we all do the same thing. But we were going to talk about Lorne.
No, I don't think it's insult.
Right. Well, that's good because I'm the same as you, so I'd be like having a go at myself, really. But we were going to talk about Lorne's stalking tendencies. It's something that you brought up, which we are going to do a stream about because I think it's quite interesting, and we can touch upon broader aspects as well. Andrew, you should do a voice new robot. Andrew should voice a new well. With my Prime Directive law, I'm not sure that'd really, but it would be fun. I have to admit.
I don't know. I think you would have like a firewall between you and influencing another civilization. You would be fine. It's not.
I love it. How you can justify anything. You've got a way of being able to justify anything.
Well, Well, you're slowly creeping over because you told me today. That's my Brussels sprouts. You told me today that you've listened for the first time to the Rhoda funeral call.
Well, thank you for spoiling the fucking my narrative that I was going to say, but I mean, it's not a big deal.
Oh,
but
shit,
yeah,
I thought it was a segue. Okay, sorry.
No. Well,
but what I'm saying is you're slowly starting to creep into this now. You know what I mean?
No,
it's not a prime directive violation.
Well, no, because it's not. I can't. What I don't want to start doing is I have to be honest with myself and everybody else. If I hear something and I enjoy it, I will say. It doesn't mean I have to like agree with it or anything. And I also don't want to be like like woke or whatever and say, oh, I disagree and all that bollocks. It's just overall the catfishing, in my opinion, is questionable at the very least, which we've talked about endlessly. But still, when I listen to it, I cannot help but be entertained. It's car crash TV to the extreme. I can't help it. I've not been able to fully, because I used to be very black and white on the catfish, and I was like, it's 100% wrong, and that's the end of it. I do still think it's wrong, but I'm not quite in the 100% box anymore because it's quite, it's complicated. I don't want to make a bigger deal about it than it is. We're not talking about, massive world politics that need to be debated with whoever. It's silly and it's stupid, but it is interesting. It's like, does a guy who has served his time, who is in his own way trying to get on with his life, is it justifiable to bully him? Because anybody would say, if Lorne wasn't Lorne and it was a normal guy, and someone was continually pretending to be a girlfriend and having him do all crazy shit, there is no doubt whatsoever it would be deemed as bullying and harassment at the very least. Because it's Lorne and because of who he is, it's seen as being justifiable, which is, I do understand it because he's not a good guy at all. He's a predator. Anyway, we're going off on one. But
when you say deserve, though, it kind of implies like a punishment or some sort. My theory is he doesn't look at it that way. He'd rather have this than nothing at all.
Well, that's why it's not as black and white as what I originally thought, because there's a lot of different facets of it, like his culpability, his awareness, the fact that it actually might be good for him. Really, it's bizarre.
I think he's actually improved his behavior.
Well, you think, what would he do? Let's just take the fake relationships out of his life. We're going off on one here and not even talking about the subject matter. But if you were taking the fake relationships out of his life, let's just say he never got catfished and Emma never made contact with him in the first place. Maybe somebody else would have done. But as I understand it, she had to go through a lot to get into the position that she was in. So it's potential. Let's just say that hypothetically he was never contacted. I mean, this could be a stream within itself, but what would have happened in his life? Would he have gone out to? Would he have got himself into another predator-like situation? Because that's what.
Yeah, we already know that. There's evidence of that.
Yeah,
the Nikki thing, right?
I think there are many reasons why we can safely assume that's a possibility, that he would have engaged in some sort of predatory behavior, because over the years while he's been being catfished, he's had various characters really try to nail it home for him to take responsibility. And although I don't think he ever really did take responsibility for what happened in Nashville, I think they made more progress than he would have made otherwise, forcing him to listen and go through the chat log and all that stuff. He was in complete denial at first, like as far back as Ramona. He was in complete denial. He did nothing wrong. He even said in his lawsuit, what did I do that was so bad? I talked to a girl online. What's so bad about it? Completely, ignoring the fact that he exposed himself to her. He tried to get her to violate herself for him. I think he would have done the same thing. And maybe with local girls, if he'd been, if he had had internet access, which we know he did for a short while until he blew it, then I definitely think he could have done that.
Well, he already did. Again, bringing up Nikki's situation. I mean, we read that September 2015 report a year before Ember got in touch with him, and we saw his stalking. We saw his predating. When the probation officer came over, and he was all upset because he couldn't reach her, and he found 39 phone calls, whatever it was, within a six-hour period, and that same number of texts. He didn't need a catfish to turn into that person. And the other thing is, even during the catfishing, I don't think we can say for sure what he is really like outside of this. He spends a lot of time here on the phone with these people, obviously, but we got kind of a taste on one of the calls that he was showing the shed, the metal container, to a woman who was going to come over and maybe renting it, and she was just so offended by the whole thing, she just walked away. And on her way out, she had told him that she knew that he was following her around town, and she may have been some kind of a sex worker or something. We don't know much about it, but it was obviously somebody that Lorne was attracted to. So the catfish had nothing to do with this. I think when it comes to the catfish, I think Amanda's right. His behavior became more tempered, because remember how he was with Ramona. He was just completely out of control. Now, you can say that alcohol may have been part of that, but he's come a long way from acting like that till now. And he's still crazy. He's still out of his mind. He's still selfish. He's still a predator and everything else, but he's learned at least some things. He's picked up some things along the way. That's my feeling about it.
Yeah. I think there's some truth in that, and I think there's something we could explore, maybe in a bit more finer detail. If we could do a bit of a talk just about that, but it kind of links up nicely to what I wanted to talk about. Is that something? Is it Slothcat who does the brilliant animations of the lawn calls?
Yeah, isn't that great?
They are great, and I loved when he was talking to his mum. I must have watched that 10 times, and it's just so funny at the end. She says, "Your mother thinks you're a fucking idiot." Like at the end, it's just so funny. But
didn't she look like him in court? Didn't she look like him?
Yeah, it's just.
Oh, did she?
Do you know what's good about it? Is Lorne's life is as two-dimensional and as crude as the animations. That's kind of it encapsulates it perfectly. And I watched the Rhoda's. I kind of listened to it as much as I watched it. Rhoda's funeral. Now, I don't really know anything about that storyline other than what you guys have told me, because, as I've said a lot, I struggle to listen to it, really.
Everybody loves your initial reaction, Andrew. This is great. This is good.
Right.
Never talked about this.
You don't know how Rhoda died, Andrew?
Right. Would you want to tell? I've no idea. I assume, just off the top of my head, I'd say drugs overdose or something.
Well, it's worth mentioning, I think, because it's another very unbelievable story that Lorne fell for. Winnie, and correct me if I'm wrong on anything, Shin, but Winnie was in the hospital. She was sick and dying, I guess. So she had obtained a death with dignity pill.
Because hospitals give that out all the time, right?
They gave her a pill so she could choose when to end her own life. And she put it in a brownie for some reason. And Rhoda was on the phone with Lorne, and she asked him if she could have a bite of her mother's brownie.
Daddy.
And Lorne, right, Prince Daddy. And apparently it was a pot brownie, according to what Lorne thought it was. He obviously didn't know there was a death with dignity pill in it. So he gave her permission to eat the brownie, even though it wasn't his brownie to give. He said, "Go ahead and eat your mother's pot brownie." And she ate it and died. So Winnie blamed Lorne for killing her daughter over and over again. He let her eat the brownie.
Oh my God. But like that even makes it funnier. In fact, that emphasizes what I wanted to mention. So it was good that you gave us that context. I'm sure everybody else knows. But I knew that the character had died. I didn't know anything about it. And because the animation flashed up, I thought, you know what? I'll give it a listen, see if I can stomach it. Because not anything... It's no point, I just struggle to listen. There's no point me going into that. But I thought, go on, I'll have a listen. And I found it incredibly funny. I mean, it was just. But what really got me was the bit where there's the false. There's so many things that make it funny, right? You've got this funeral that for some reason is on speakerphone that Lorne can listen to it in its entirety. It's almost like the people participating in this funeral are more intent on getting somebody on the phone involved who's never met anybody. So it's all it's all being played out. You've got this music going on, and all these crazy characters getting involved, and then that guy, is it Dan or whatever he's called? He says, "Do you want to say something?" And then Lorne goes, "I love you, Rhoda." And you just like, this guy just believes everything. It's like, how could a human not fucking think for 1 second that is just?
I thought the funniest part was him sitting in his truck sobbing.
Yeah, but that's at the point, yeah, where he's like,
Andrew,
he's buying
actually, I don't
into
know.
it.
Slothcat is unbelievable. He's actually he's going to mainstream Lorneography, I think, with his cartoons. But there was a part where he was crying, and he didn't give a eulogy. He wanted to, I guess. You heard that part. But he's at work, and somebody actually asked him for a cigarette in the middle of his grief.
Yes.
Oh yes, that was great. Someone came up to him. He sat there in his truck with his stupid earpiece on, and this funeral's going on, and he thinks he's responsible for this person dying.
And the characters, man. Victor's my favorite, though.
I think Winnie is animated perfectly.
The bit where they play the tune, that stupid tune with the chipmunks singing, and it's like, and you just think, and they're all doing that chicken thing, and then Lorne joins in with a song.
This is great. This is like hearing your initial reactions to videos we've all seen and we wanted you to see is great. It's fantastic.
It's and there's, I think everybody knows there was a bit of beef, shall we say, with my channel going down and all that stuff. But I have to just be honest and say that the the characters that she was playing was very, very good. It's
you can't take that away from her. She's got talent,
it's a shame that it ended up going the way it did. But anyway, I'm not interested in going down that road. But just judging it on its own merits, it's the sort of, it was very well done. You know what I mean? And it's like very entertaining, and it's difficult because like I said, it's like I could jump on the Prime Directive bandwagon, of which I wouldn't get involved in any of that stuff, but at the same time, I can't say, "Oh, I'd never do it," and then slag off everybody that's doing it and then laugh at it. It's at the same time, we can question it. I'm not telling anybody what to think, but it's almost like there's a certain unreality to it. I don't know whether unreality is actually a word, but when you're listening to it, it's like, it's almost like it isn't, and we know it's not real, of course, but what I mean, Lorne's kind of inability to grasp any concept of reality almost makes it not as sinister as what it would under normal circumstances. It's like, what harm is being done? You understand what I'm getting at? I mean, you agree with me, Amanda James. You're as harsh a critic on Lorne as anybody. You hate the guy. But you do agree on the surface of it that the catfishing is questionable at best, don't you? You just don't give a shit about Lorne. That's your perspective, isn't it?
Well, if you come right down to it and you say, is it morally right to lie to somebody and, try to get them angry and try to get them upset, then, well, no, of course not. You can't say it's morally right. But it's not as simple as that. A, like you said, I just don't care because it's Lorne, and I guess my morals go out the window when it comes to him. But B, all he has to do is hang up the phone.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I don't consider it bullying, because all he has to do is hang up the phone, not answer the phone.
But could you say that about?
He chooses to
people that are getting online scammed and stuffed into these online dating things and get them. I know it's not financial, but financial, it doesn't really matter what's at stake.
Okay, the first time. So I guess with Lorne, we could say Ramona. The first time, maybe that was questionable. He didn't know. He had no idea what was happening. It had never happened before. He had never had his calls recorded and put online and all that stuff. But after that, he just kept going for it again and again. Even
and then
with
he's
Ramona.
talking to a robot, and you'd think at that point, you'd be like,
I think
a male voice robot.
He suspends his disbelief on purpose so he can go along with this shit.
I think you're right there. I think you've hit the nail on the head there.
Yep.
Absolutely. How could anybody believe any of this stuff?
And as far as we're concerned, and the entertainment value that we get, you're talking about watching that Sloth Cat cartoon, Lorne is the glue that keeps that together. I mean, if they were just doing that on their own, it was just a fictional script. It could be funny, could not be. But that one guy who believes it's real is where the star is in that whole show.
Absolutely.
It wouldn't work unless. And by the way, it's not all bullying either. I mean, Lorne gets his good moments. He gets his rocks off with some of these, some phone sex sessions that he has, and all. He gets what he needs.
Well, this is what we talked about whether it's actually beneficial for him. Now, I think some of the people that were involved earlier would certainly not like to think that. I think there was a degree of malice, but like I said, we're going down another rabbit hole if we talk about that, and I don't want to, include people that are not here to sort of make their own case, really. But it is an unusual case. Like I said, it's not. At the end of the day, right? Is he being deceived? If you put it this right, if the call started and you say, right, just to let you know, this call's being recorded, it's going to end up on the internet, and this isn't a real person. He would obviously put the phone down, but probably a week later, he'd call back and say, I think you really like me, don't you?
Right.
Yeah.
That's what he'd do. But then again, if you made that call,
it's the alternative he's afraid of. It's the alternative he's afraid of, Andrew.
He'll talk
having nothing around.
He'll talk himself into a way to believe it, so he doesn't have to let go, and he doesn't have to, I don't know, be alone or find a real person to date like the rest of the world. I think a lot of times, especially with the Winnie character, they made it as unbelievable as possible on purpose to see
see what he'd actually believe. Yeah, that's the way it seems.
Yeah.
Well, no, I actually talked to Ember about it when she was doing it. I said, what's the purpose of the character? And she says two things. One is to gross him out as much as possible and see how much he can take before he dumps her. All right. Mm-hmm. In other words, make her as miserable and ugly, as horrible as a human being as possible, and see if he ever, if he ever hits a breaking point. And the second is to make him a Lorne version of a woman.
Right.
Those are the two things that she had. So, you can't. It's an interesting social experiment, I thought.
And he hung on for a long time because Winnie was vile. The things she said were she would say things about his mother, like really nasty things, not just insults, but like nasty, dirty things that she wanted to do to his mother. She had a problem using the bathroom.
Oh, yeah.
Like all,
she didn't have a problem. She just didn't want to. That's all. The funniest thing she ever said, I thought, was when they were getting intimate. And she whispered, "Don't you wish you made something of your life?" It's little things like that, that. Yeah.
That's great.
And I want Dan's cock deep inside me forever. I mean, where do you go with that?
Yeah, over and over again.
And their timing together was perfect too. They're back and forth.
It was back and forth.
Well, the sort of theme. I mean, I think Amanda James has just summed it up really about why he does what he does. Like the funeral thing emphasised perfectly that no matter how silly a scenario, he buys into it like it's real life. So at that point, he's been sucked in completely. He's like, that's why I think the cartoon is so kind of representative. Of course, it's supposed to be, but what I mean is the whole ridiculousness of it and the two-dimensional crude drawings, no disrespect to the artists because that's how they were meant to be, show the fallacy of the situation. So it's like, for somebody who hasn't been diagnosed with any kind of specific mental problem that we're aware of, how can anybody buy into that? So, like, that whole scenario is silly. He's been sucked in. He's been talking to these people for real. I think it's almost like when people are in a relationship and there's a lot of untold truths, you buy into kind of a false scenario which doesn't exist, and then that'll eventually fall apart. You kind of live in an illusion, aren't you? And we've all been there. You know, it's not exclusive to anybody. So I think there's maybe some of that in. So he believes it's all real. So he's not really going to, even when that funeral situation arose, he's not going to then have a moment of, he's not going to then have an epiphany and go, oh, actually, this is fucking silly. Why is it funeral being broadcast on my phone and they're all, I can hear everything perfectly and I'm getting involved? And since when has a speaker on Bluetooth been allowed to make a comment on a fucking, on a funeral? Like, since when did they play chipmunk music in a church? He's not going to have those moments, is he?
See, I think he does. I think it crosses his mind. This is crazy. I think it crosses his mind, and then he will find a reason to push that away and to believe it. Like with the funeral, for example, Dan and Emma believe it. They say it's real, and he trusts and believes Dan and Emma. So he's going to go along with it. That's going to be something that he'll use in his mind to convince himself that it's all real. Even though Emma has lied to him 1,000 times before, he's still going to believe it. I mean, that's what's remarkable, is that he keeps falling for crazy shit over and over again, even after it's revealed that these crazy scenarios were lies. Like the Winnie character started out as Casey Moreau, and there was crazy shit that happened with her, like the TSA.
Sorry, can I just interrupt you? What do you mean the character started out as Casey? I don't understand.
Okay, well, it's very complicated actually, but Emma had access to Lorne's YouTube channel, and she told him that he got a comment on there from Casey Moreau. So he got in contact with Casey and started dating her. And then it was revealed, because I guess they're like, oh, they didn't expect the Casey character to go far, and they didn't want to continue using her name, I guess, because she is a real person. I'm assuming that's what I've heard, at least. I'm not sure. But so they had to change the Casey character into a different character. So they planned, the story was that Casey was actually a woman named Wendy, who was pretending to be Casey to catfish Lorne for Xavier.
Yeah.
So Lorne knew that Winnie was not honest with him from the beginning. She was pretending to be somebody else and lying and making up all these crazy stories. And then she told him, yeah, I worked for Xavier and I did all that stuff. Love with you. Right. But I fell in love with you. I fell in love with the real you, Lorne. So, and she's like, and you fell in love with me too. You just, thought I had a different name. So Lorne stayed with her and wanted to marry her. Yeah.
Lorne actually has a hand in his own delusions too. It's like we sometimes see him naming the characters that all the characters end up adopting. Like what comes to mind, like Sheffrey. Suddenly Sheffrey is a real person when that wasn't the real name that was thrown at him. He just makes his own character. And the other thing is, when you talk about that kind of mindset, because that's what we're examining here, it's the same kind of mindset that thinks that writing a poem to a scammer or some business connection even is a good idea. I mean, what kind of thoughts go in your mind like that? I mean, I don't know if you know that story, Andrew, but recently, oh God, this is going to be good. You're gonna.
I think I've heard. I think I've heard of some of this, but go on.
Okay, Amanda, maybe again, correct me if I'm wrong too. Apparently, he got scammed by some online person or whatever, and ended up getting business loans or loans with a bank. He put himself like in debt by $6,000. Ripped off, totally ripped off. There was some involvement with the mayor of Italy or mayor of a town in Italy, whatever. But he ended up really hanging on to the scam, and he ended up decided his best way out of this thing, I guess, was to write a poem to the scammer. And so here he is at his own detriment. He's losing money, and he's borrowing money, putting himself in a hole, putting his possibly his property at risk. Somebody puts an attachment on or something. But and he writes this woman a poem because he wants to hang on to that delusion that scammer cares about him, that scammer is attracted to him. And this poem is just going to not only possibly get him in her good graces, but also get him the business deal he was looking for.
Do we have a copy of this
poem?
Who
thinks about writing a poem? Who thinks about
it? Patrick Teacup Ireland read that poem on his channel, right?
Yeah.
Right. We need to have a look at that, don't we?
Andrew, it's sublime. It's beautiful.
So the funny thing is, Shin, I think, from my understanding, that the mayor of Italy scam, and the loan scam are two separate scams. So he was
he got scammed twice. Okay.
At least twice.
Okay. So the point is, when we talk about the delusion, falling into the delusion of the catfish, he knows it's a real woman he's talking to because he hears a woman's voice, just like the scammer is a real woman. So he thinks somehow through this Hallmark fantasy mind of his.
What about the robot?
Well, the robot started out as a real
that's
woman.
A different. Yeah, that's a little later, and she started off as a woman's voice too.
She lost her voice due to COVID or something, due to complications with COVID.
Yeah.
So had to use a robot voice.
Yeah, but wasn't she? Just correct me if I've got something wrong on the storyline here. Wasn't she pregnant and making adult movies at the same time she couldn't speak and had to use a robot
later.
voice?
He's right. Yeah. She was
a
a porn star with no voice.
Right. So how did he think that she could do these? I mean, I suppose if you're just doing the adult movies and it's not one of them cheesy ones with attempted storylines in, like Passion Before Midnight or whatever.
It was just porn, I guess.
It doesn't matter, Andrew. You're looking for logic in his brain. It doesn't matter.
No, but it's Lorne's logic that we're looking for. Our logic and his are two completely different things, or everybody who's listening to his. And also, the robot thing, the Jeffrey where he goes crazy. He doesn't. He believes that that's 100% true at that point. If there was a part of him that thought he was getting had, wouldn't those delusions that he's creating disappear? Because what I get the impression that we're trying to say, and I agree with this, is that the alternative is so terrible for Lorne that he'll choose to believe that there's something there, because that goes for a lot of people on a lesser scale, is when you are in a bad relationship and you want to believe that it's going to work, or you deceive yourself because the prospect of being alone is just too much for some people to bear. But with him, he was taken to the brink of like that bit where the character was on the phone to Rod and he's going mental and he keeps putting the phone down and then obviously he keeps calling back or she calls back or whatever. The fucking robot calls him back and he answers the phone, which is funny. But what I'm thinking is, if he suspected that it was bullshit, why would he get so passionate and angry or furious? Like, literally, there was a point in that call.
He does these when something really horrible happens. He does a couple of things. His suspension of disbelief is suddenly gone. It's like, you two I'm starting to wonder, the fourth wall is starting to break only when things don't go his way. That's when the delusion becomes kind of cleared a little bit. The dust clears a little bit from the illusion, but he'll still want to go back to it. He'll still come back to it. But yeah,
the Sheffrey thing was very believable to him. I think he believed that completely, because you saw the pictures of the robot, of who Lorne thought was behind the robot voice. She is very beautiful. She's half his age. He had no issue believing that men online were going to try to hit on her and try to steal her away from him. And he